Hello everyone, yours truly, Chrislevi13, and after the craziness to end 2019, but also to start 2020, I am finally in the right mind frame to get back to creating videos for each and every single one of you part of the Vault Squad, because I'm in the right mind frame both professionally and personally to be able to create engaging, informative, fun videos for each and every single one of you all. And today's topic is E3 in 2020 really needed, because with the second year in a row, one of the biggest companies, Sony, says, hey, we're not going to E3. And I've heard people talk about it on Twitter, through Discord, on podcasts, and in their own videos about, is E3 really relevant and needed? So I thought, hey, let's talk about that. So sit back, relax, hopefully you enjoy this video, and if you're new to the channel, do me the biggest favor, hit that subscribe button so you get content from yours truly. So as we dive into this topic of, is E3 needed, because Sony for the second year in a row pulled their stuff out, I just want to let y'all know right on the front end that I do streams several times a week. I do Sunday and Tuesday night hangouts with each and every single one of you all, and also I do the Vault 13 podcast most Wednesdays throughout each and every single week. And the Vault 13 podcast is a gaming and entertainment podcast where if you wanted to join in and be on an episode of the podcast, you're more than welcome to do so. You just got to hit me up in my DMs on Twitter or Discord, and we can just talk about, hey, getting you on an episode, you know. And even if it's not on a Wednesday, we can do a pre-recorded episode and record it and premiere it live. But anyway, getting into E3 and as it's needed, as I got my green screen working, you know, and I'm going to be using that a lot more going forward, I just want to think, is E3 really needed? Because Sony, for the second year, pulled out of E3, you know, and you got to think, back whenever they did their last E3 in 2018, it was kind of all over the place, you know. It was like they had them in one building and then they moved the people to another building while they're doing their E3 conference, and it was kind of all over the place. And then they didn't do a PlayStation experience, and then they didn't do a PlayStation experience last year, and it's just like, you know, you're not at E3, you don't do PlayStation experiences, but yet you do this new thing that's somewhat of a ripoff of Nintendo Directs with their State of Play and the way that they do that. And it's like, you know, do we really need it? Because, I mean, Nintendo, when they want to do announcements, what do? They drop a Smash Direct. When they want to do a Pokemon thing, they drop a Pokemon Direct. When they want to do their indie stuff, they do Indie World Directs. When they do their other stuff, they do Nintendo Directs, you know, and it's basically what you used to get at E3, but in little bite-sized formats where they can create the videos, get the games, get all the stuff they want to put out and tell people, and just show it in a video across social media, and it gets to everybody, sharing it on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, here, there, the other thing, you know, and all that jazz. And Sony started to adopt that format. Now, as far as the other of the big three, Xbox, they do their thing called, every once in a while, called Inside Xbox, where basically it's an event where they'll show some stuff with what's happening with the current games on Xbox, you know, some future games. Sometimes they show some big stuff that you didn't expect to be dropped there, but most time it's just, hey, this is what's going on with the Xbox platform, the current games that we got going on, some new things happening with some of our franchises and all that. And they kind of talk to some of the developers right there, and it kind of feels like an E3 thing right there, but several times a year. Plus Xbox brought back their XO event, which last year was done in London, which I thought is a very, very good event for Xbox, you know. And XO is kind of like Xbox's answer to the PlayStation experience. Now, as far as Nintendo, they don't have anything like that. They have their Directs, and then they have their E3 experience. But when it comes to E3 itself, it's been going for a long time, you know, and it's been a really, really cool thing to see E3 go on each year, you know. But less and less, the big things aren't being talked about at E3. They're being talked about in State of Plays, Nintendo Directs, Inside Xbox, or even the Game Awards. And it seems like people are talking about, is E3 really viable? Is E3 really important, you know? So I want y'all to know, down in this box below, down there in the chat section down there where you can leave a comment, I want y'all to ask me, what do y'all think about E3? Is it really viable going forward and all that jazz as I dive into the discussion? Because If the big three are thinking, hey, we can do our own events outside of E3, then do we really need to spend those millions of dollars to make our spot at E3 and to have all these different people, whether they be media or fellow YouTubers or journalists or just fans of our product, come and see us, you know? I think E3 shouldn't have to depend on the big three. Yes, it's a big draw to have PlayStation there. Yes, it's a big draw to have Xbox there. Yes, it's a big draw to have Nintendo there. And especially if they're there and they're announcing hardware stuff and they're big first-party IPs, it's a really, really engaging thing. And everybody around the world around that time in June is in June, July, is just glued to it, you know? It's like, whoa, we're glued to it, you know? You know, because I mean, last year I was glued to it and I got fucking copyright strikes, you know, and boom, you know, and a bunch of other people did, you know, I had to fight to get my live streaming purchases back on YouTube. But when it comes to E3, I don't think they should depend on those companies. It's cool to have those companies there because they have the biggest three conferences of this thing. But I feel like if you're EA, if you're Bethesda, if you're Ubisoft, if you're Square Enix, if you're Devolver however you say it, Devolver Digital or whatever. Sorry about that. If you're one of those other indie companies, you know, an indie company that isn't tied to PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo. Hell, if you're another company and you're making stuff for like retro consoles, like the Retron stuff, or your Castlevania games, or your you know, Hyperkin, and you're doing these like emulated consoles or stuff to be able to play older games. Or maybe you're a company that goes, hey, we do VR, or you know, or maybe Google with their Stadia. Hey, we didn't have a presence really at E3, but now if these companies are taken out, we can make a presence at E3 and try to make our Google Stadia, which isn't doing too well, better, and have a big presence there, you know, and all that jazz. I feel like E3 could be less dependent on those big three and more dependent on third-party developers, indie developers, and other companies, so that they can show their stuff. Like, hey, and they'd be like, you know what? If I can't have those three companies there as E3, then let's go and find more developers to bring their games and show them here for the first time. You know, let's bring them out. You know, have them come up here and show about their companies and talk about their companies and what kind of games they're creating, whether they're indie games, they're open world games, they're third-party games, and all that jazz. Because I feel like if I watched an E3 and I had a bunch of games that were like going to be released for my Xbox, my PlayStation, my Nintendo, my PC through Steam or Epic and all that jazz there at E3, and they weren't dependent on, oh, I've got to be here and show my game on Xbox first. Oh, I've got to be here and show my game on PlayStation or Nintendo first. You know, I still am going to have my game on all those consoles, but I ain't got to show it there first. I can show it here in my own little conference, you know. You know, whether it's tied to Bethesda with their id Software, their Doom, their Elder Scrolls, or their Fallout stuff. It's Ubisoft and all their stuff, or it's like Square Enix and all their different franchises, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, the list goes on, you know. It'd be really cool to see those companies kind of say, hey, let's not depend on where we're going to release the consoles. Let's focus more on our games and show people these massive, enthralling trailers that aren't just cinematic, but they also have good and enthralling gameplay, and we give them good deep dives as much as we can as the developer on, hey, the gameplay mechanics and stuff like that, you know. And then it'd give these chance for these indie developers to come to E3 and be like, hey, we're showing off these games, you know, and these indie developers be like, you know what, let's not wait till an indie direct, you know, or one of these companies say, hey, we'll show off our game, you know, or just go on social media, you know. We can go on social media and promote our game. Cool, great, grand. But let's use the platform of E3 that these companies are less using, and let's take up the space that they're not using and make it work for our company, you know. And maybe if these companies do that, maybe one of those big three will be like, hey, I want to make that a first-party studio, or I want to help develop that game and get it out there faster on multiple consoles, or maybe just on our console, you know. Or if people like me and the average consumer out there or person out there might say, hey man, I see less Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo, but I see more of these other games that I never expected to see. You know, I always saw a lot of indie games on sale or on the Steam or on my Xbox, PlayStation, or so forth. But now that they're getting showcased more, I actually play more of these games, and they're actually really cool games that you get to see these people play, because a lot of people that make indie games, they sometimes throughout the years will later get hired by the big companies, the first party companies for PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo, and they'll be hey, you were making this indie game, now you're working and helping making Minecraft or Rare games, or you're helping make Naughty Dog games for Sony and all this stuff. And it starts, because you got to start somewhere. So what do y'all think with my thoughts? I know they're all over the place and all that, but do y'all really think E3 is needed? Because I feel like it's needed. I still want to see that, especially to end this off, going into the new year. I feel like Sony pulling out isn't really a cool thing, because it feels like they're going to either, before E3, throw out their own event and say, here's the PS5, or they might wait till after E3 and see what Xbox does, and then throw their own event and be like, boom. But the thing about it is, whether they show it before or after E3, we as consumers would love E3, right? E3, you got basically 4 to 5 months before we can actually, basically 5 or more months before we actually get these consoles this holiday season in November and December. So we want to say, hey, we want to know about these consoles, because right now we know we're getting a PS5 and an Xbox Series X coming this holiday season. We know that Xbox is going to have Hellblade on it. It's going to have full backwards compatibility. It's going to have backwards compatibility with all your controllers and devices for your Xbox One. And it's also going to have the biggest, I think, series ever on Xbox, exclusive to Xbox, is Halo returning back to fashion as Master Chief, being able to play as him. So they've got that. We don't know much about PlayStation. I mean, we've seen like those little dev kits and all that stuff, and all that jazz. But what are the ports going to be on this system? What are going to, what games that from this gen are going to be playing next gen on the PS5, and all that jazz. What are the ports on the back of the system look like? How many, and all that jazz. Is it full backwards compatible like the Xbox is making their consoles, where you can play disc all the way from the OG Xbox on an Xbox? You can play stuff that is on sale from the OG Xbox on the Xbox. Is PlayStation going to say, hey, we're finally have the capabilities and technology to have you be able to play PS1, 2, and 3 games, as well as PS4 and 5 games on your PS5. If they're able to do that, they unlock something so big and monumental, But where really is Sony's head going forward with VR and everything like that? Because they can do these state of plays and show a few games here and there. But where really are they? Because you can say all the specs you want to in the world, but until I hear Microsoft or Sony confirm, hey, this is 100% the specs of this system, then I will take what they say with a little bit of grain of salt, because I can listen to many people talk, but until these people actually say, hey, this is what's confirmed, like Phil Spencer or whoever's at Sony or who's ever at Nintendo, whenever they confirm stuff, I take everything that's said by his YouTube videos, podcasts, and even my opinion with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I'm making, until they 100% confirm, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, I'm all bored this, But anyway, I just want to know, what are y'all opinions on E3 and all that jazz? I feel like it's still needed, and if Big Three want to pull out, like Sony being the first one to really pull out, it also gives an opportunity to Nintendo and Xbox to further their friendship, but also make bigger presences on E3 as 3 for their stuff, they got coming out, and also it gives a bigger presence to the other developers as well, to say, hey, if this person's not here, we will take the charge and show more of our stuff, or what we're able to show. So I just want to know down in the below, in the chat right there, where you can comment right there, down the comment section as they call it, what would y'all like to see at E3? Do you think E3 is still needed, and all that jazz? This is my first real video back, so it's kind of idea that I kind of just went with, and just sit here, was out of script, talking directly to y'all through my camera, is E3 really needed, I think it is. And yeah, if you liked the video, leave me a like. If you didn't like the video, leave me a thumbs down and all that jazz. Share this on social media if you would, and also check me out across social media. I'm on all the platforms. If you want to support the channel, there's links down below to my Streamlabs page, page. Also, I have a Patreon where you'll start getting exclusive, at least one exclusive video per month from my Patreons and people that want to see that there, as well as other things as I think of them going forward. Anyway, I'm Chrislevi13, and I will see you all later. And do me the biggest favor, and that is stay awesome.